Any questions about what I just said? So all the SEC regulatory actions that you read about that are scaring people, I shouldn't say all, 95% of them involve fraud. Someone's lying proactively or misstating. Okay, the SEC is not super hard going after situations where people made honest mistakes. They may be asking them to take back their transaction, but they're not, neither them nor the FBI at the moment are bringing criminal charges. So just tell the truth. Okay, here's another one. Remember that I asked the audience whether or not the SEC can take the position that all tokens are securities, or whether it does take that position or whether it can take that position. The SEC, unfortunately, was not clear for a long time, but now it is being clear. It has come straight out and said that not all tokens are securities, and of course, not all ICOs involve fraud. Now, to me, this is obvious. I mean, not all tokens are securities. You can have a token representing anything, right? And a security is a defined term. But the SEC, because I think they didn't understand what's going on, or they wanted to protect people, weren't clear. And so all these self-appointed experts on Facebook said every token is a security. The SEC says so. No, they didn't actually say that, but they were vague and unclear. And the US lost a lot of business as a result. So the SEC came up with a nice website, sec.gov/ICO. And I love this first part. And this is sort of like legal English. ICOs can be securities offerings. You know what it means when you say something can be? You mean it can also not be something. ICOs can be security offerings, i.e. they also cannot be security offerings. ICOs based on specific facts may be, another good word, may be securities offerings and fall under the SEC's jurisdiction of enforcing federal securities laws. May be, may not be, based on specific facts. That's the actual law. If something's a security, under the definition of a security, which we'll get to, the SEC has what's called jurisdiction. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Okay, the SEC does not regulate shoes in the United States. Okay, if something's a shoe, they can't say it's a security. They can't call a duck a spider. Right? A thing is what it is. Right? And then the chairman of the SEC actually got up in front of a university and said, of course not all ICOs are fraudulent. Well, thanks, a little late, but that was okay. That's Jay Clayton, he's the chairman of the SEC. And just keep in mind, the United States commissions have chairmen. Or, there we go. And this is a fake ICO website that the SEC put up to educate people about what fake ICO websites look like. So it's actually pretty cool. They call it Howey coins. Now, who's heard of the Howey case or the Howey test? Come on, let's do cardio. Raise your hand. Good. Okay, so the SEC had a sense of humor. They created a fake ICO website, which I have to say looks better than 90% of the real ICO websites I see. So if you want a really good ICO website, hire the SEC to do yours. And they went through the usual things. A white paper that was bogus, promising high investment returns, like 1,000,000% per second, which it's hard to maintain, I think. All this fun stuff. Anyways, it's worth checking out. Okay, let's dive in a little bit deeper. And again, I'm using Mickey Mouse without permission, and I'm glad you're recording that, sir. That's gonna be used against me later. All right. We'll go into more details, but the SEC is what's called an independent agency of the US federal government, the national government. What does that mean? It means it's not part of a department. For example, we have the Department of Defense. We have the Department of the Treasury. In countries outside of the English system, you have usually ministries, same thing. The SEC is an agency that is independent of any department. The Congress, meaning the lawmaking body of the United States, passed 2 laws that are the core of securities regulation in the United States. There's the Securities Act of 1933 and the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. And they said, in Congress, we're a bunch of old guys, and they were mostly guys, we don't understand this stuff. We're going to create an independent agency that we delegate, i.e. authorize or deputize, to regulate securities on our behalf, subject to certain rules. So the Congress has the right to regulate securities. They said, this is too complex. What the heck is going on with this stuff? It's like tokens. We don't understand. They created this new agency called the SEC, and they said, SEC, pursuant to these two laws, technically the Exchange Act of 34, you're created, congratulations, you exist. Now, regulate securities for us. But if you get out of line, meaning you go beyond the letter of the law, or you break constitutional law, they kick you back, or we'll kick you back. And the SEC said, thanks, what's a security anyway? Luckily for all of us, a security is a defined term. And all these self-appointed experts on LinkedIn and Facebook and everywhere else don't know what the heck they're talking about. If you want to see what the SEC can regulate, go to the 33 Act. It's all on, the internet. And look at section 2A1. Now section 2 is very useful. It's section 2A rather. It has a long list of definitions, terms that are used in the law. And the very first definition, of course, is what the heck is a security? It's a long list, but it's a usable list. Security means any note, stock, treasury stock, profit sharing agreement, yada, 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 investment contract, which is important. All these things. If it falls within this list, it's a security, and the SEC may have jurisdiction. If it doesn't, then it's not a security, and the SEC has nothing to say. Just keep in mind, there's other agencies and departments in the US government. If the SEC goes beyond securities, those agencies and departments go, no, that's ours, not yours, back off. For example, the SEC does not have the ability to declare war. That's the Department of Defense or the President, actually it's the Congress. Right? The SEC does not have the right to impose taxes. That's the IRS. The SEC only can do securities. And here's a little tidbit. Commodities, gold, silver, and futures on commodities, are not securities. There's a difference between commodity and security. There's no right or wrong answer to this. Who thinks that Bitcoin is a commodity? Raise your hand. Lasha raised 2 hands. Everyone, this guy is the future president of Georgia. Okay. Who thinks that Bitcoin is not a security? You just voted against the future president of Georgia, just so you know. The answer is we're not sure, but it's definitely, it's more like a commodity than a security. I mean, there's no Bitcoin Inc. that has yearly profits and a board of directors. It's more like gold that you mine out of the ground and then you trade. All right, so now here's the section that gives everyone a hard time, and I'll go into more detail later. Included in the definition of security is an investment contract. What the heck is an investment contract? The reason that was put into the act was before these laws were passed, all the 50 states in the United States, or most of them, had their own definition of what a security was. And the courts in all those jurisdictions, all those states, had decided cases trying to figure out what's a security and what's not a security. I mean, some things aren't securities. That orange is not a security, and I'm going to use that in a moment. So when the Congress put in the term investment contract, they were saying, since we don't have a clear definition of what a security is and what it isn't, or new things come around all the time, for example, tokens, we're going to have this bucket category, this broad category called an investment contract. And if something functionally is a security, then it will be an investment contract, therefore be regulated by the SEC. But of course, they didn't actually define what an investment contract was. That was decided by a later case called Howey that we'll go into. Okay, now, that was a little prelude. So let's again put the SEC into context. The key to understanding any US law is understanding the US's constitution.